We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and I'm being joined today by my brother, Jeff Witt from New Jersey. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, here we go. This is the Couples Academy Show. And as you know, every single morning, we come to you for about 30 minutes of power. And so wherever you're dialing in from, we want to know who you are, where you are, represent your place of origin. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Listen, we've been in this series on just answering your questions. We had an overflow of questions on Friday, so we decided to carry them out throughout the course of the week. And we want to continue in that conversation. But listen, guys, we've got one spot left for the Last Chance Weekend. One spot left. Who is it going to? Remember, November the 12th through the 14th, we're going to be here in Northern Atlanta for 3 days to help transform your life and restore your relationship. Many of you have been asking, should we do this or not? Well, the answer is, I don't know. It's up to you. What do you want? You know, you want to get what you want to get. You got to do what you got to do to get what you want to get. All right. So check out this video for the Last Chance Weekend, and we'll be right back and get into this conversation. That's right, guys. It's not too late. The Last Chance Weekend is available for you if you want to experience it. And not only will Danielle and myself be there, but Jeff will be there. We just got word that Lakeisha Hines, you know her very well, she will be there. You know, a good portion of the team will be there to serve you. There will be time for all of us to come together as a group, but there will be that individual time. Jeff, talk to them about the power of the individual sessions that they had with each counselor and how that really made a difference to help them get over the hump that they were in.
No, I mean, we mentioned a little bit yesterday, but it's really that session is about connecting on a different level, because there's a lot of fear. Like they say that there's 2 types of people within inside us, one who builds walls and one who builds their strength. And when you have that kind of conflict in your life, sometimes we obviously put up our walls because we're worried about getting hurt. And sometimes we're worried about hurting someone else. So in this particular case, having that person sit down with you in between and kind of just playing referee a little bit, to see what's right and what's going right and what's going wrong. And you could see the expressions on the face that sometimes you can't even read in your partner because you're so used to them and you're also so preoccupied. It allows the space and a little bit of intervention to mediate and allow things to get out that wouldn't normally come out, and allow questions to be redirected in a way that actually gets to the meat of the problem. I noticed that even couples who've been together for a long time, sitting with a couple that have been together for 20 years, and they knew each other for 20 years, but they did not know each other's tendencies when it came to dealing with pressure situations. And so you'd see one person saying one thing just to hurt the other partner.
Yes.
The other partner doing something to wall up and try to prevent that. And you have to get through that in order to get to the truth. Because behind all of that, and the crazy part is just once we can break those walls down, there's like this newfound connection. And it's not always like the most positive feeling in the world. Sometimes there's tears. Sometimes there's a little bit of resentment still there. But there's like a sigh of relief. You can actually see the waiting to exhale moment. And that's one of the things I loved about it.
Absolutely. You know, I'm reading this comment here from Mary T. She says, the only recovery that works for me is to hold in contempt, I guess, for the other side. And listen, this is one of the things that keeps us stuck. When we hold on to contempt and resentment and bitterness and disgust and unforgiveness, there is no recovery in that process. There is no restoration. There is no transformation. There is no healing. All you're signing up for is more pain. And you carry that pain with you everywhere you go. And here's the deal. Even when you divorce, if you decide to do that, you think, okay, well, that's the pathway to my happiness. But now you've got a different type of pain that now you've got to restore yourself on your own. You don't even have help anymore. And just you're adding just more layers on top of layers on top of layers that make it very, very, very difficult to get beyond where you're currently at. And so, listen, I want you to reach out to us because I think we need to have a conversation about what recovery and restoration truly looks like. But I appreciate you sharing your comment. Listen, I'm excited this morning because we have people representing Atlanta, Mansfield, Texas, as well as Australia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria. Where else? I saw a couple of other places all over the world. It's good to have you guys. I never heard of Msanzi. Richard, you're from Msanzi. I don't know where that is. Give us clarity on where that is. I would love to represent you. The Great Elephant, my wife thinks I put others before her. How can I show her I do not? Well, put her before others. Like, it's just that simple, right? So it's all about prioritizing her. Like your spouse, the relationship you have with your spouse, that's your primary relationship. All other relationships are secondary to that. And it's about giving time and attention. Now, I say this all the time, like there's priorities that we have in our lives. And you can weigh in on this, Jeff. Many of us prioritize God. We prioritize marriage. We prioritize family. We prioritize work. And then, of course, we prioritize our own personal time. Now, the reality is my marriage is more important than my job, right? But who gets more of my time? My job, because I got to make a living. So I got to work 8 minimum hours a day. I'm not spending 8 hours a day with my spouse. So it's not about the quantity of time, but it's about prioritizing quality time. And if you give your spouse time, she doesn't feel like she's competing with your friends. She's competing with your hobby. She's competing with your work or anything else because you've made her the priority. And once you do that, everything else comes, sets in place pretty well. That would be my advice. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
I think I'm not a doctor. Let me add that caveat, but I have a prescription for you. I want you to take that HER song, Focus, the one where she's singing, Baby, Will You Focus on Me, over and over and over again. And I want you to play it on repeat like 10 times. Because what she's saying is that she doesn't feel like she's a priority. It's very easy to shift that. If that's really what she's saying, that's an easy thing to do, because my wife used to say the same thing. And what I had to do was, when I was on the phone, I didn't care if I was on a business call, and I do some pretty big deals sometimes. I would literally put the phone down and say, excuse me, could you hold on 1 second? I said, okay, baby, you have my 100% complete attention. What are you saying? Oh, no, you're on a call. No, you're first. You're my priority. You have to go out of your way to make it known that she's a priority in your life. And if you take the time to do that, I think you might be able to avoid counseling.
All right. So it's simple things, guys. It's not rocket science. And here's the other thing. We're oftentimes trying to listen to everyone else. We listen to videos, we listen to podcasts, we listen to friends, we even listen to a counselor, but we won't take the time to listen to our spouse. What is our spouse saying? So when people come to me and we're sitting in the session, how do I get my spouse? So how do I get my wife and I'm like, they're right there. Ask them. Ask your spouse, right? That's what you should be listening to first. And I'm here to help mediate. I'm here to help navigate the conversation so it goes well. And if, one of the principles we teach at Couples Academy is become a student of your spouse. Get your PhD in your partner. The more you know about your partner, what makes them tick, what turns them on, what turns them off, what floats their boat, what buttons to push, what buttons not to push. Now you're operating in a more effective way with your partner. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. All right, we got some questions from yesterday we didn't finish. Let's see if we got to this one. We watch your show daily and have your book. We haven't had any real counseling yet, but she is doing everything I ask her to do, and I'm still hurt, and I don't trust her at all. Any advice? What can I do better? So you have struggles trusting her. So the question then becomes, if she's doing everything right, she's dotting every I, she's crossing every T, and you still don't trust her, is the issue with how she's showing up? Or is the issue with you in terms of what you're still thinking about, meditating on, vacillating in back and forth? Like a lot of times we get so soaked and saturated with the past, with what has happened. We begin to ruminate. We begin to become so overly obsessed with it that it's hard to let go. So we rob ourselves of our present moment because we're still tied to a past experience. And so I always ask the question, because we go through a checklist. Okay, is your spouse showing up in these particular ways? Check the ones that she is or he is. And when all those boxes are checked, now we got to take a look at you and help you to begin to reset your mind, retrain your brain, how to thought shift, how to catch and release, how to really manage this here, because this is a tool that can either control you or you could learn to control it. And to me, this is where it all starts. Jeff, how would you speak to that?
Well, you said it best. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a self process. If trusting someone when they're giving all the right signals is off, it's you taking the past and casting it into the future. The past no longer exists. The future doesn't exist yet. And if you are suffering from two non-existent things that, well, we might call it socially acceptable, but it's a form of insanity. And it's going to drive you insane. I'm not saying you're insane. I'm saying that is a form of insanity. We all do some insane things where we loop into our problems. But if we can avoid trying to project what isn't there, and if we can just be here now in the present moment, reward positive behavior with positive behavior, and discuss or work out anything that you see that may be going otherwise. But at some point, your trust issues are probably not just rooted in this situation. They probably have existed in other situations, and you've been living in that past and casting it into your future.
Powerful point. Let's go to the next question. Can time and change of scenery, like moving out of a state, help heal? I feel my spouse is trying their best after many infidelities. I'm feeling okay on the outside, but I feel inner layer of pain and sadness. I'll start with this and then you can weigh in. So can time and let me go back to that. Can time and change of scenery? So number one, time is neutral, right? What power is there in time? Time could be your best friend or your worst enemy. It's about what you do with that time that ultimately makes a difference. So if you're taking advantage and managing effectively what you do with your time, yes, it can help. But things can remain the same if you're not productive with what you do at that time. So hope that answers that question. Then change of scenery. We've seen many couples that have relocated. Absolutely. They have moved on. They have gotten to another environment because the environment that they were in was a very triggering environment. And every time I have to go to work, and every time I drive home, or every time I go to the supermarket, or every time I go to the restaurant, there's this anxiety and fear that I'm going to see and experience and relive all over again what you did or what I did, because this person lives in the community or in the environment. So starting fresh and going somewhere else can, C-A-N, bolded, underlined, in parentheses, can be a good thing. The challenge with that is, listen, you take you everywhere you go. You are the lowest common denominator of your life, of all of your experiences. And just because you made an external change doesn't mean that an internal change has taken place. When you change on the inside, everything changes on the outside. Remember, you live in the world, but there's a world that lives within you. And this is what you should be focusing on first. Because if you focus on this, then everything else changes. You can go all over the place. You can go to Timbuktu if you want. But if you're your same person, you think the same, you act the same, you show up the same, you react the same, you respond the same, then you're going to get to doing more of the same will get you nothing but more of the same. So once again, yes and no to the question. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I think she had the key, or he had the key in the actual phrase. Time and change of scenery. Get rid of the time and the scenery and focus on the change. It's the change in your minds. Now, scenery can help. Environment, putting yourself in better environments can help, but the focus has to be changed.
Absolutely. Boom. JB says, is it okay for a man to stop his wife from working, going to school, don't want any family or friends of the wife around, have no room for compromise, don't want to have kids yet? Is that normal?
No. If I'm just going off the information here, if there's no affecting factors, that contributing factors that are risky in some way, I've seen it where it is healthy when there was drug addiction or something like that, or But if I'm just going off what I see there, it's not healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the way you set up that question, absolutely not. This is why we always say, well, listen, if everything you're saying is true, then I give my answer, right? So that's how we preface it. If everything you're saying is true and accurate, there's always two sides to that. I would want to know a lot more than what I'm hearing. Is that the fact? Is that your perception? Is that that true person's true motive and intent? Like, I want to know more about that story to give an answer, but just based upon how you asked it, no, it's insane for anybody to want to control and manipulate you and keep you from your family and friends and keep you from working and keep you from going to school. And absolutely not. In the book, The Audacity of Marriage, 10 Principles of Lifelong Partnership, the first chapter, we talk about how marriage is a God idea. And it talks about how when two people come together, there are two individual parts that come together that make a greater whole. Right? They both make a greater whole. So in this partnership, as a part of the whole expand, it enhances the whole that I'm a part of. Likewise, if my partner, who's a part of the whole, expands through education, through spirituality, through whatever the case may be, it only adds and contributes to the greater whole. And so we see so many couples who are in competition with one another. We see it all the time. They're trying to one up each other. They're trying to sabotage each other. They're trying to prevent each other from doing what they individually want to do, which could benefit the collective whole and the family. And it's a problem. So there's some deeply rooted issues, I'm sure, that contribute to that. That's worthy of a discussion to get you two in a better place.
I also think there may be conditions on that, my no response. Is it a restriction completely on friends, or is it a type of friend? Because I went through a period where I had to change who I was with in order to maintain a healthy level in my relationship. And my wife became very restrictive and very judgmental about who I was with. And it felt like I was not allowed to have friends. So conditionally, I would say, is it anyone, or is it a request to raise your standards? That's just the question.
That's a very good point. All right, next question. I had an emotional affair with my husband 12 years ago. I never told him until recently because he cheated on me. I feel like my guilt and my actions pushed him to cheat. How can I heal from that? Well, number one, are you going to counseling? Are you seeking help, or are you just trying to do it on your own? That's going to be the first thing that I would recommend that you do. And one of the things that's awesome, Lakeisha Hines, as an example, who is one of our marriage counselors, but also works with all of our individual female clients in transition. She helps individuals to get through a process of healing to get to a better place. But it seems like not only do you personally need to heal from what you've done in the past and what has happened to you presently, there also needs to be a restoration plan between you and your spouse. And, our team can help navigate that. All right, there's another question from Keisha. Self-reflection is what my husband is missing. Does this have to do with him not taking accountability for his own wrong actions and things he's done, Jeff?
This is my department. Really, give him to me. Give me a few months with him. I'll let you know. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of times men have a problem, and this is because it's perceived as weak when they're being held accountable, okay, especially by their spouse. And it really should be set as a goal instead of a restriction. So a lot of times wives have a tendency, I know my wife does, has a tendency in her trying to hold me accountable. It's very judgmental at times. And we've worked beyond that now because I'm holding myself accountable. And what men have a hard time realizing is that if we are able to achieve our own level of accountability, then no one needs to sit on the sidelines and judge what we do every day. And that if the spouse is willing to allow us that space to grow, then my wife would literally judge almost everything I did and had some kind of opinion at one point. And now we've been in a space for years where she just trusts because she knows I hold myself accountable and I hold myself to a higher standard. But that takes work because we don't all have those role models. I mean, I had great parents, but I didn't have that level of education within my home on how to handle certain situations. And so there's a learning process, and you cannot do what you do not know. You have to go through a process of learning. And unfortunately, there's only a few outlets you can go to get that. And you have to be careful who you put your mind in the hands of. So
absolutely. And regarding the whole friend piece, it's important that we have outside relationships. We need that to be whole, to be balanced. There's certain things you get from other people that are necessary for your own happiness and development. I mean, Jeff, you and I have a relationship, right? We've been friends for many years, and now we also work together. My wife is my wife. That's my primary relationship. But if I had to cut off the relationship that we have, that would cause a problem. Now, here's the deal. If you were a negative influence, if you were caught up in activities and behaviors that were unbecoming, then I would have to distance myself from you for a period of time. I mean, I would still love you. I would still be there to support you. I would try to help you to come back into, the proper way that you should be functioning. But if you go rogue and you go crazy, at the end of the day, I got to mind me. I got to be careful for me and what influences. See, because you are the sum total of your 5 closest friends. And so if you ever want to know where you're going to be in life, take a look at them. Think about them financially. Think about them in terms of integrity. Think about their marriages. Think about all of it. It's so interesting, man. When I find a person who's gotten a divorce, almost 8 times out of 10, they have close family and close friends who are all going through divorce. Like, in essence, you take on some of the same behaviors, the same mindsets of your friends. And so my thing is, you got to pick your friends like you pick your fruit. They've got to be quality. And I think as long as you're maintaining a standard for your life and who you're attached to, it will make a significant difference. I'm probably going to jack this up, but there was some quote that I heard, something like, you don't have to inhale what other people exhale. right? If it's a negative thing, because if you're around negative people, you're inhaling what they're exhaling, it will ultimately affect you. That's why you want to have positive reinforcements around you all the time. People who will make you a better version of yourself at the end of the day. And
I
that's
know this was a buzzword for a while, but entanglement is very real.
Mm.
I'm telling you right now, if any of you, I'm not a big country music fan. I don't hate people who like country music. I just personally don't like it. But I'm telling you from experience, I've never liked country music. If you work in a restaurant that plays country music, you will end up seeing a country tune, like it or not. And I learned that from actually working in a restaurant, waiting tables many, many years ago when I was in the Army in a side job. I found myself humming and even singing country songs. And the scary part is it still resonates, because if I hear the song, it starts to play in my head and there's a familiarization. And the same thing happens when you have groups of friends who aren't always walking the right path. You may not be doing what they're doing, but there's a tune that's playing in your head that sometimes will resonate, and that can manifest itself in actions, especially on any given day, especially a little whine and song, especially in an environment where you're unhappy or uncollected or a little mentally off balance. You can end up causing actions to be very similar to those friends in a moment of weakness. And so that's why we have to be real guardians about who we allow ourselves to be around on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Another question from Marie: is it possible to have an affair and seek out women online for a year and then not remember when questions are asked by the spouse? This is what we call unethical amnesia, that somehow people don't remember anything bad that they were involved in when they were the perpetrator of the accident. And so we see this all the time, in the full discovery conversation that we have, or when people are having conversations prior to our full discovery or full disclosure conversation. Give me 1 second, guys. But oftentimes, 1 second, Jeff, answer that question while I fix this.
Yeah. So no, it's a lie. It's obviously a lie. Selective amnesia, toxic amnesia, whatever you want to call it. It's avoidance. And that avoidance could be happening for two reasons. One part of that avoidance could be happening from not wanting to cause more pain than they've already caused. The other reason for avoidance of those types of questions could be because they're really truly embarrassed or ashamed of what they've also been of what they've done. A third one is that they're just naturally a liar. I think you would probably know which one of those is true, but at the end of the day, it's one of those three things. They're either straight up liar, they lie about everything, they don't care, they don't want to get in trouble. 2, they're embarrassed or ashamed. Or 3, they just don't want to hurt you. I'm hoping it's the latter.
You're hitting it right on the head, right? And so there's this diagnosis, as I was starting to say, called unethical amnesia. And, the more I read it, the more I discover, and we're going to do a whole show on it, because it's something that so many people face. And what happens is, if I don't know, I don't remember, I don't recall, if that's the response to everything, you're doing more damage than you are good. And you're thinking, well, I won't tell her because I don't think she can handle it. Or if he finds these facts out, it's just going to be devastating. And now you're projecting your own issues, your own fears, your own thoughts on your partner. And that truth may be the very thing they need to get the healing that is necessary to be able to move forward. And so you're stripping them and robbing them of what they need to get to a better place. And it's damaging. I do not believe that you just go blank, that there's no way that I just don't remember. It's just so vague. And so if I ask you, and I've tested this, because in full disclosure conversations, I've gotten completely away from the affair and asked them about experiences that had 25 years ago. And it was like they were living it right there in the moment. And they could explain every detail, every scenario. They could they could articulate all the senses that they were feeling. But then we get back to the affair and it's, I don't recall. I don't remember. And I could just tell that they're doing it because they're trying to avoid. And that's what it all comes down to. So hope that answers your question. Ralph says the only issue is that not everyone has good examples of quality couples around them. So how do you find people to look up to besides Couples Academy? That's a very good point. It may take some time. Because, when we first got married, we looked around us and there was, because the question was, do you know 5 healthy couples that you can name? And we struggled to name 5 healthy couples. We could describe 5 couples. I don't know how healthy they were. I don't know how happy they were, but you have to take the time and step outside of your own environment. Maybe there's a church with a marriage ministry that you can join to be exposed to other couples. There are meetups all the time where certain couples into certain things get together regularly and begin to engage and have a good time. That couple may be an older couple. They may not be a peer. It's going to take time, but eventually, if you seek them out, you will ultimately find them. And guess what? If you have nobody, then that's why you have Couples Academy in the meantime. That's why you have great books that can unpack for you what a healthy relationship looks like in the meantime, till you find someone who's in close proximity to you.
I got 3 things for that. First priority is create what the ideal marriage would be in your mind with your partner. Create a plan of what that looks like. And I understand having the engagement. Second thing is, you may need to go on a fast from all the toxic couples you're around. I had to. We had to get away from all the people that had unhealthy marriages and unhealthy relationships so that I wasn't affected by their drama and looking to those types of people for advice. And then I think the third thing Hassani hit on the head is you look for older couples who have been together for a long period of time, are still holding hands and still doing public displays of affection. So if you're traveling together, doing things together, enjoying the grandkids together, the longer that they've been married, the more successful you'll be at finding other couples your own age to blend in with. But you may have to, like Hassani said, find an older couple as an example because they've survived it.
Absolutely. Just a couple more questions and then we'll go. What should you do when you are in counseling and one spouse gives up because they don't want to deal with questions from the betrayed spouse about the infidelity? Yeah, it's a similar question, right? What do you do? That's a good question, because what we do know is that oftentimes couples, or I should say individuals within a relationship, are motivated to do things in different seasons and different spaces of that time. So when one wants it, the other doesn't. And then when one gives up and they're like, I can't do this anymore, then all of a sudden the other one says, okay, I'm willing to do it. What do we need to do? And it's unfortunate that the timing isn't right. And so the one who's asking the questions doesn't want to hurt, harm, hinder the progress of their relationship. They actually want to make things better, but they're stuck unless they get those answers. And so if counseling isn't working, my question is the counselor properly guiding you through the process, right? A lot of times when we talk to people, their counselor doesn't necessarily specialize in affair recovery, doesn't understand what full disclosure looks like, how to prepare a couple for it, to have a comprehensive conversation. And this is why we do, and here's the other reason why we really, really, really believe in the Last Chance Weekend and the private marriage intensive, is because oftentimes these painstaking, hard conversations of what happened happen over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, because you're only in a 1-hour session. But what we do is we provide a dedicated amount of time, uninterrupted, to going deep dive. And I'm going to tell you, Jeff, you can attest to this. 1 hour having a conversation, I can stall for at least 45 minutes, scratch the surface. I know we got 5 minutes left. Sorry, see you next week. All right, I'll come back next week and we're starting from scratch. Versus we have 5 hours and we're trapped. We can't go anywhere. There are no distractions. There's nothing to get into. In that period of time, we see people break down. When I say breakdown, I don't mean that in a negative way, but the walls come down, the apprehension goes away, the fear and the anxiety removes. Something shifts in that dedicated time, and they're able to get answers from their spouse that it took 20 years to get. And a lot of it has to do with the format that we put in place that makes it conducive for all of this stuff to come out. Would you attest to that?
Oh, that's the absolute truth. And in fact, we saw that the first night, the last one, the first night, there was a lot of tough battles. The second day is when all the truth came out. Like there was some people who were very, very resistant through the discovery process, but after going through a few of the experiences and having that time of going through some of these experiences, which jar in a good and a positive way, they jar the release of all the tension around hiding or hyping, and you just get to be you for a real second. Once those walls come down, yeah, and in an hour session, like I see it all the time. We'll end up having the same conversation week after week after week, and I feel kind of weird about that, but it's because they didn't retain any of the information, they didn't do any of the homework, they weren't really even paying attention. They can't repeat back to me what we talked about last week. But when you have them for an extended period of time, like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours or more, you see those walls come down and the attention really gets focused. And when you're hiding behind a wall, it's hard to see what's going on.
I got to hit this question. We're going to go with Jay, and then we're going to end with Francisco, because Francisco and I have been communicating through text, and I promised I would get to his question. But first, JB, how to maintain a healthy long distance marriage with a great age difference, 20-year gap. You got two things that are working. You have two challenges here. Number one, there's a 20-year gap, right? You have to understand that every type of relationship comes with its own set of challenges. That 20-year age difference, there's, you have different interests, you have different passions. Sometimes there's a communication gap. Sometimes it's a struggle to understand each other. Sometimes you have a different value system because you were raised a certain type of way. And so it requires having conversations and getting on the same page and realizing that there are just differences you're going to have based upon that gap that you're just going to have to learn to accept. We see that older partners may want their younger partner to become more mature. We see younger partners want that older partner to just become more hip and cool and laid back. So there is the tension of the difference. But once again, acceptance is critically important. And if this person is who you chose to marry, there were certain phenomenal qualities about them that interested you. But with that, there are those other things that are just not going to be in perfect alignment, as with any couple. And so that's something that's a tension that you have to manage. But then the other issue is you're in a long distance relationship that has a whole lot of complexities as well, because now you don't have quality time in the same place and space, which can create challenges. And so it requires that you are highly in tuned in terms of the way in which you communicate, whether it be phone calls, FaceTime, Marco Polos, texting, chatting. You should always be in contact with each other. And even though you're not in each other's presence, your presence should be with your partner, or your partner's presence, in essence, should be with you. And then you got to make time for visitations. It's just a whole ordeal. Now, you can overcome it, but these are challenges that you're going to have to face. Is it manageable? Is it doable? Absolutely, because others have done it. You just have to realize that you're going to have to put in some work to maintain a healthy, long-lasting relationship. Jeff, you want to weigh in on that?
Just the part of a long-distance marriage. And my real question to that is, why is it long distance marriage? The only reason I could ever see that one person shouldn't give up something to be together in a marriage is prison or army, military. Other than that, somebody should be willing to make the change and make the move, because I don't know how you maintain a long distance marriage when you're not separated by forces that you really have no control over.
Well, yeah, prison is definitely an issue. Marriage, we know that people oftentimes, what do they call tours, right? They go away on a couple of tours so you're distant. But then work is an issue. You have certain people who live in one country, their spouse is in another country, and they're going away for work and then financially providing for the household in another country. There could be visa issues. There's all types of complexities that are involved in why this happens. But one of the number one goals that we have when we work with these couples is to figure out how quickly, how fast we can get in the same physical proximity, because that solves a whole lot of problems just being together. We've seen even couples who were dating long distance for years, and then they get married after being together for just a couple of weeks. And now it's just like there's this whole issue of, I thought I knew you, but I really don't know you. I knew you in terms of a two-dimensional conversation that we would have, but knowing you in terms of your, I don't know, your quirks, your idiosyncrasies, I didn't pick up on a lot of things because I wasn't in your physical presence. What happens is when we're living separate, we have our own ways. We have our own ways of doing things. We have the home just the way we want it. And now you're coming up in here trying to change what I've said. It just becomes a problem. So it's something to work through. We're going to go to Francisco. Francisco says, can you cover my question from yesterday in our text messages? So in essence, Francisco was in an affair. The wife found out about it, and she has been in constant communication with the affair partner. He's trying to get the wife to break away or to break ties with the affair partner, because how could it be healthy to their relationship? And Jeff, I want you to weigh in first, and then I'm going to end with it.
Well, for me, what I'm seeing, if there's a true attachment to the affair partner, I don't know all the details. Are they becoming friends? Are they hanging out? Because it looks to me like there may be some she's searching for something. Like, what was the thing? And I don't know this for sure because I don't know all the details, but what was the thing that brought you or attracted you to them? And they may be turning that inward on themselves and using it to judge themselves, and you may be feeling it as them taking it out on you, but it sounds like insecurity to me, because I don't see why anybody would ever want to have any kind of contact with the affair partner after the discovery has been had properly.
Yeah. You know, one of the reasons why a person wants to stay in touch with that affair partner, maybe they begin to question what the spouse is actually saying in terms of what happens. And so what they'll do is they'll connect with the affair partner, whether the affair partner reaches out to the spouse. And oftentimes when an affair partner reaches out to the spouse, there's an objective, there's an agenda. Either I want to be your man's wife, and so I'm going to sabotage your relationship by feeding you information that you'll hold on to that will cause a rift, and then I can slide in and be in that position, right? That oftentimes is the case, especially if you're having an affair with someone who's single. See, someone who's single is in the number 2 position, oftentimes looking to become number 1. If they're married, it's a different dynamic, right? So either they're doing it for that purpose, or maybe they don't want your spouse, but they just want to destroy what you have because maybe your spouse ended the relationship. They're mad about it. So they're like, you know what? If I'm going down, we all going down. What happens is when you engage in conversation with that partner, you take what they say as gospel. For why would they lie? Well, wait a minute. They were part of a lie from the beginning. They were part of a secret, deceptive act from the beginning. And so I don't know why all of a sudden this person becomes a moral authority, why all of a sudden they speak 100% truth. And so we take as gospel what they say. They can actually be making your healing process worse, your recovery worse, your ability to trust your spouse worse. And so what we always recommend is not only should the spouse who was in the affair completely break ties with the affair partner, the spouse should also break ties with that affair partner. We call it the no contact contract. And so we're severing all forms of communication, whether phone, whether text, whether social media, social gathering, whatever access we have to that person, we've got to cut it off and put it to an end so we can destroy, excuse me, because what happens is when an affair happens, it has negatively impacted the marriage. So sometimes we have to do some demolition, we have to do some clearing out, and then we have to begin to rebuild a healthy foundation so that we can build a strong, successful relationship. And as long as she is involved in any way, it's going to completely slow the process down or compromise the integrity of what you're trying to do with your spouse. And so listen, if any of you are befriending with an agenda or in communication with an affair partner, please sever it, cut it off, end it now. Because as long as you're attached to them and they are the ones involved in the affair, you are still attached to that past affair experience, which keeps you from moving forward in a healthy way. Guys, I hope that this was helpful today. We were talking about many things, answering your questions. I see that there are more questions here, but trust me, we will get to them tomorrow, for we are doing relationship Q&A all week long. So guys, we love you. Have a great day. See you on tomorrow.